Hey everybody, this is Robert with RC Archery, and you are watching Tuesday's Tip of the Week number 63. In today's video, I'm going to be going over dip bangs. I'm going to give you 3 tips on what could be causing them that I see that happens most often, and the ways to fix them. And then at the end of the video, after the credits roll, I will give you a bonus tip, and that'll be a good one. It will link together with another video that I've done in the past and kind of bring everything around for you. So the idea with what I'm doing here is I've literally dusted the cobwebs off because I want to come out and I want to start doing videos again. But I want to do it a little bit differently this time. I am not directly affiliated within the industry where I'm selling products, where I'm partnering with other companies. I don't have any sponsorships. There's nothing going on. So what you get from me now is going to be completely raw. Whether it's something that I like, that I use personally, whether there's some form of way that I think you need to be shooting or something going on, I'm giving you raw advice. Cutting directly through everything would be completely frank. So I'm not going to give you a blanket statement that'll work best for 90% of archers. I'm going to tell you if this is what you're feeling, this is what I would recommend. And if this is what I went through, I will let you know. Whether that sounds politically correct or not with whatever tips that I give you, i.e. pulling through releases. More on videos like that later. But let's get started on this one today. 3 tips on how to help with what I've seen as the most common issues for dip bangs. All right, so tip number 1 is making sure that we set our bow shoulder correctly so it works for us, not against us. And the shoulder itself, first of all, it's one of the most complex muscles, joints, structures, and everything within our body. Elbow is designed to move one way. Shoulder can move lots of different ways. So we want to make sure that the way that we draw our bow back, we're actually setting up that joint to where the stabilizing muscles that work around it are actually holding on to it. And then it allows our muscles underneath our arm, through our neck, our back, and all of that actually start to support the arm, support the weight of the bow. It makes us steadier on target, and it helps you keep from seeing this bobbing up and down. A lot of the times, a couple things that I see with archers, different things, but a lot of the times what I'm seeing with archers, maybe they're overbowed, or maybe they've never been taught the correct way to draw a bow back, and they draw the bow here and then try to lift it up on target. And when you do that, you're actually jamming everything together in that joint and kind of pushing the tissues and everything together within this joint here on top. And the only way that it can get back to normal at that point is to lower itself back down. So that's when we start seeing our sight picture, it starts wanting to drop and it's creating problems and things for us. The bow feels really heavy no matter where, where the weight is on it or how hard we're pulling back, things like that. So the way that I teach to draw is similar to what NASP teaches, but I go a little bit beyond that because I'm not having to teach children and I'm not having to be responsible for accidents or anything like that. So as a responsible adult, the way that I teach it and the way that I would draw it back myself is to have my bow hand be slightly above the shoulder when I start to draw on the bow. And the reason I do this and what that's doing for you is it's driving all of the bones, the joints, everything. It's just kind of compressing it together and it's seating it in place where it's holding it for you. This keeps you from not feeling like the bow is super heavy because the joint is wanting to come back down. It actually just makes the joint kind of settle in place. So when I draw a bow back, I go through and I lift the arm up just a little bit, slightly above, and then draw it back and then settle down on target. And that is what is most comfortable for me, but I've also seen that that's what's given me the best sight picture possible. Now, along with that, we also need to have a little short course on what we need to do to the bow to make sure that we're getting in the correct position. First and foremost, most natural way that our body works is generally the most repeatable way. So if you hold your hand down at the side and then you lift it straight back up, this is where your arm needs to set. We want the draw length then on our bow to match that. We don't want to have to scrunch our shoulder in or pull it up or have our scapula moving back towards the spine, and we don't have to be really stretched out or reaching or doing anything crazy like that. Big bends in the elbow, locked out, all that good stuff. So first and foremost, we need to find the draw length that our body is needing, and that's how we're setting up the bow. Now the bow's draw length and the bow's loop length creates two separate equations, and it also handles two parts of our bodies. Our loop, the length that our loop is, and the length that our release is, how we're holding it, and all that stuff, that is for our back end. First and foremost, we need the bow to be able to get to a good anchor spot on our face when we're naturally just coming up here. I recommend the elbow doesn't need to be locked out. Just hold yourself against a wall to where you're leaning on it a little bit and supporting your weight, and then see where your arm naturally wants to be on that elbow. Take some videos, pictures of it if you need that, and try to replicate that when you're drawing the bow, when you're holding it at full draw. You can also do some measurements, different things. You can measure from the base of the palm to the middle of the chest. I find that gets people pretty close on what they need for their draw length to begin with, and then just fine tune it from there and get the bow to set up. See, it's been a long time since I've done these. To set up and kind of fit you the best to where you're naturally in a good position for it.
All right, tip number 2 is where you get to see the raw side of what I was talking about earlier. And that's because I'm going to explain to you how I'm doing things, the way that I teach it to people, and based off the feedback that I've gotten from a lot of individuals, this seems to be the way that works the best for most everybody out there, at least everyone that I've been through and talked to. So what I consider to be the most consistent and the most repeatable and the easiest way to shoot our bow is to create tension in the shot and then hold that tension through the shot. Now that doesn't mean that I am consistently pulling back and pulling through the shot and doing all of that. I don't believe in that. I think there is a time and place for that in training, certain scenarios. Some people may need that. But if we're speaking about just pure accuracy, eliminating our dip bangs, trying to create consistency in our shot, what we're doing, I feel like holding that tension, creating it and holding it is best. And what I've got here today is a more in-shot trainer. I know every time I bring this out, everybody is in the comments asking about it. So you can go to Lancaster Archery, you can purchase it there. It's under their shot training aids. I don't remember how the drop down is and what you can get. You can just search out more in-shot trainer, it'll be there. Love this thing to be able to show for examples of what I'm doing, but I'm gonna talk you through my setup, my process, and what I'm doing. So when I am getting my bow and I get to full draw, from that point, I am either, and everybody's a little bit different, so let me speak here and explain it. You're either going to start pushing a little bit away from the target while you're pulling away from it, or just pulling away from the target. And you're gonna do that extremely slowly. And what that's doing is it's building tension in our shot. You'll notice this a lot more if you have a high let-off bow. You'll see a much larger advantage to this than if you have a target bow with, more holding weight, different things like that. More aggressive cam, less aggressive cam, all this is a little bit different. But what you'll start to notice is as you start to pull the bow back and expand into that shot and create that tension in our bodies, our body is naturally going to start holding itself more still. The pin movement gets slower, it gets less big movements involved, everything calms down a little bit. And now if you pull too far, create too much tension, you'll notice that there's some bigger movements, things like that go on because you've reached and exceeded that maximum limit. But if you can get yourself into that range to where you're steadiest from one shot to the next and hold that range throughout your shot, you will notice that the dip bangs almost go away and that your accuracy and consistency on what you're seeing downrange is much more improved. Now, when you're executing the shot, the second form of this is where it varies from one person to the next a little bit based off of what you need and what you're doing. Some people need some people have a problem with creeping. So if you tell somebody to sit there and just hold that tension, they'll start over focusing on aiming and their shot will kind of collapse a little bit, they'll creep a little bit, they'll cause some problems. If you're that type of person, you may need to think, okay, expand a little bit through the shot, create a consistent feel against the back wall. You may have to do that and think through it. Don't over pull, don't over move, don't do anything like that, but you may need to expand a little bit. Now, if you don't have that issue and you're consistently able to just kind of hold that in place because you've reached an amount of tension that is enough to where you're holding it there, then that's fine too. Me personally, It does vary a little bit day to day, but for me, I mostly just get that good tension that I see on target, and I can just hold that there, and then I manipulate the release with my hand, and I make the shot go off that's best for me. Topic for a whole nother video. But that would be tip number 2. In dip bangs, what I tell most people is the best way to eliminate it is creating that perfect tension, because if you're constantly a little bit more, a little bit less, more, less, you just start seeing that sight picture bob up and down, and that creates a lot of problems.
All right, tip number 3 is how we're weighting the stabilizers on our bow. Majority of bows today, you'll notice that if they don't have anything on them, the top of the bow wants to tip back a little bit. Every riser geometry is a little bit different. This is more severe, less severe in some models. Some models don't do this at all. They want to tip forward, but I see a lot of them pretty commonly today wanting to tip back. And honestly, that's a good thing, because the way that I'm going to teach you to weight things is going to actually help you. That little bit of a tip back, you're going to be able to more maximize this, I guess is the best way to put it, depending on how far it's going. So the main principle that I hear a lot of people say is that the bow wants to drop down on target and they feel like they have to keep pulling it up, or they're really good in their shot and all of a sudden it's dropping and they're reaching and pulling it up, dip bang, all that fun stuff. So the idea that people say is you need to put more weight on your back bar to help hold the bow up on target. And in a lot of cases, that is the completely opposite thing that you want to do, and it's actually hurting your shot more than it's helping it. When we are loading our weight on that back bar and we just keep adding more and more and more, or taking some off the front, and the bow is just naturally wanting to hang back, when we get to full draw, when we're pulling back on this bow, we're actually going to start trying to pull the front of the bow up. And when we're already weighted that way and it's dropping back, it's creating bad problems. Going back to the last tip, it's wanting us to take tension off of our body. The bow is naturally dropping then. The other thing too is that if it's constantly wanting to lift and come up, we have to make it go back down. So we're almost pushing the bow back down. So what I recommend starting with for anybody, whether it's a hunting setup, whether it's a target setup, or whatever you're doing, I say to have a little bit of a forward bias on the weight with the bow completely decked out the way you're going to shoot it. Set your bars up and then have it to where it tilts forward in your hand a little bit. So for an example, this is me when I'm holding my bow, and if I let go of the fingers up here, it dips down and it actually comes down to where it hits me in the arm here. So I'll hold it this way and let you see. This is pretty level and it wants to come forward. Now, when you're shooting, some things to look for and when you're setting up, what I would do to begin with is aiming drills. And that just means that you're drawing back on target, you're holding on target, you're creating that tension we talked about in the last tip, and then we're watching our sight picture. We're not controlling it, we're just letting it do what it's doing. And if it's naturally pulling itself up on target, I'm gonna add some more weight to the front bar. And you can mess with this depending on lengths of the bars and different things. The ratios are different. So as you get closer to this and you're fine tuning, you may want to combine some weight on the front bar with the back bar. You may want to add some overall mass, less, different things like that. And then what you can also start doing when you get really close is you can adjust the angle of this back bar up and down. This bar, when it's level, has a lot of leverage, but as the end of this bar starts to drop down, you're taking overall distance from the riser back away. You're making it essentially closer. So what that will do is make the bar react like it's a little shorter, a little less heavy, and then that will also help you micro adjust everything and kind of get the exact weight that you want. But what I would do is be aggressive in our shot, holding that tension to where we have the best sight overall picture movement, and then to adjust that weighting until it's in the center of the target and we're working on center of mass naturally. For me, I think the easiest way that I can tell people for helping with accuracy is to find your natural middles, left and right, up and down. This is a huge part of that. There's a lot more that goes into it. There's things that I've talked about on videos that I sell. There's other videos on YouTube that I've talked about on different factors to help with this. But as a base principle, talking about dip bangs, that covers a ton, and it really helps you with an ability to be able to control what you're seeing downrange a little bit more and being more active in our shot. I mean, we're not on a tripod with a rifle where we're, sandbag on the butt of the rifle, set up, everything is perfect. Like, we're engaged in this. This is a physical act for us. We're holding a bow back, we're holding it up, we're holding it on target. Be aggressive, people. Like, we're not maxing out in a weight room, but put some muscle into it, put some effort into it, and you'll actually see that aggression will help you better with your shot. Now, my bonus tip that I talked about before will be at the end of the credit rolls after my outro. We'll go in depth a little bit more on this, and it's going to give you an additional tidbit that I do and that I teach out with people that honestly, it just maximizes the benefits of what we're seeing by our stabilizer weighting, doing it the way that we just talked about.
Hey everybody, I hope you have enjoyed watching this video, and I appreciate you viewing it. Hopefully these 3 tips and my bonus tip will help you a lot with dip bangs, overall accuracy, the way you're looking at kind of setting up your bow and using it. I will do my best to be as consistent as I can with videos, life work, different things. It'll probably still come in the way, so it may not be every week, but I will get these out as often as I can. Try to go back, probably revisit some old topics that I've done in the past on this channel and be a little bit more raw about it, a little bit more of what I do personally and why, and try to give into some insight into what I'm doing there and why I'm doing it. Spread the word. I don't know if this is gonna pop up for people or not, because I haven't been here in so long. I don't know what the algorithm is like on YouTube anymore. So share the video, share it to social media pages, people that you think it'll benefit them, send it to them. Spread the word again. Let people know that these are back, and I like to help people. So hopefully I get to as many of them as I can. Appreciate everybody watching. Stay tuned for the bonus tip, name of the credits. I'll see you soon. All right, guys, bonus tip for everybody that stayed around. I appreciate it. This tip is going to be to kind of combine with our 3rd tip that we talked about. For me, I think it personally just, it increases the benefits that I see with weighting, more forward weighting on the stabilizer and having that bias there. So the other thing that can create dip bangs is the way that we are positioning our hand into the bow and the weighting behind it. And what I mean by that is either a low wrist, a medium wrist, or a high wrist, meaning that you're changing where the force in our hand is going into the riser of the bow. A lot of people that I see, myself included in the past, we get really high wristed on here and we're pushing the bow. And when you're doing that, you're literally pushing it down. A lot of the times that's creating the dip bang because it's pushing the bow down while you're trying to pull it back up, and we just get stressed out with our sight picture. It creates problems. For me, I like to literally go in the opposite direction to where I'm using the base of my palm to really just push into the bow. So I set it up like normal, and then I pull it back, and there's almost a gap in between where the palm is at the top and the top of that riser. And sometimes, honestly, there probably is. I've never paid attention to it that much, but I'm focusing all my pressure and all my force right here where the wrist and the palm meet in that bone section. Super stable, but it also pushes up on the front of the bow while we're at full draw, and we can add more weight out to the front. The other benefit of that is it's literally engaging to pull the bow up, and when you're putting bias into the bow to move it up and then weighting it to where you're finding the middle of the target, you're keeping that consistent tension and putting all these tips together along with this one as well. You're gonna see your accuracy downrange explode and really get a lot better, and you're gonna see your sight picture improve. Dip bangs are gonna go away, at least for the majority of time. You're gonna see them really disappear when you get this locked in and everything set up the right way. And I feel like for me, that is the total package, and that was a big contributing factor to overall accuracy and getting those dip bangs to go away. I've gotten feedback from other archers that do the same thing, and they also have, said that that is the benefits that they've seen too. So definitely look into that, the weighting, play around with it, have some fun, and then see what you can get with your accuracy downrange, and hopefully make your dip bangs virtually disappear.